Alright guys, welcome back. I'm going to do a little video today. This one might take some time. I'm not going to lie again and say this one might be short. We are going to go over pretty much everything I wish I knew when I started iRacing. From options settings to graphic settings to car settings, camera angles, etc. So I just want to start off on this first page here. Obviously, I've done a wheel video before, so I won't go over that again with the one-to-one inputs and stuff like that. You guys can watch that one. That was on my old wheel with the what was that? The G29. So I have a new wheel now. I got a new Fanatec wheel, but not gonna dive into that for time's sake. So pretty much everything. We'll start from here, and then we'll go options, graphics, sound, stuff like that. So for starters, obviously, you guys know I like to do dirt stuff, so this kind of applies to everything, though. I won't say that it's just dirt. This is pretty much optimization of settings pretty much all across iRacing, so let me get started for you guys. Field of view, probably, honestly, the most important thing. If you're not running VR, your field of view is going to be able to adjust based on your monitor size and things like that, whether you're running one or triples or ultra wide. I've had all four, so I've put these settings together plenty of times to know what I'm talking about here. So I promise you guys can trust me. But as far as field of view, David Sampson or Samsoid, his YouTube channel, he's got a great field of view calculator that I suggest you guys find that. I can even link that, I think, in the description, I believe, so I'll try that even. But let me move this out of my way here. I use that. The iRacing one is okay. Like, if you just have a single monitor, obviously it's okay. But when you go to triples, it really gives you a good numbers to put here with the angles of the side screens and stuff like that. So when your field of view isn't set right, you're not getting that true sense of speed and distance from the walls or cars in front of you or behind you and things like that next to you. It stretches everything out if you like to go back farther. I know a lot of guys like to run single monitor and then they pull it back to, 90 or 100, 110. Well, you're kind of hindering your ability to see where exactly you are on the track because you've got so much distance between the field of view in the front of your car and in the wall and things like that, where you might, the math might come out and say, like, well, you're supposed to be on like 55 field of view on a single monitor if you've got like a tiny 24-inch monitor and you're kind of sitting far away from it. But that's your true FOV that you need to run and get used to. That's a rabbit hole. I don't want to get too much into that. You guys know field of view and things like that. I'm sure you've seen plenty of videos. So I just want to go back here to, I don't think there's anything. Oh, there is. So frame rate meter and stuff like that, the on-screen display. You guys want to turn all these on and make them graphical. I know some people will use numerical, or some people don't even run them at all. But it's a really helpful tool because... Let me just, I forgot I have that set up in the app to pop everything up. So over here on the right side, you can see my 126 FPS. I run it locked at 126 because my monitors, I have them set to 120. I run three 1440p 32-inch monitors that can run 144, but I've turned them down to 120 because I stream and stuff like that. And it kind of eats into the stream's resources when I run the game at 144, and it doesn't hit that max number all the time. So I've turned the monitors down to 120, and then I've set iRacing at 126 for myself, just to keep it above that threshold. Anyway, the R is your CPU, how much your CPU is being used by iRacing. And we'll dive into that stuff on the graphics tab here and what really affects that. And your G is your graphics card, obviously. R is the rendering, G is the graphics. So again, that on that graphics tab, I'll show you guys where things can be. So if these gray bars are like way over to the right, and while you're on track and things are going red on those bars or yellow, and you're noticing frame drops or it's skipping and kind of lagging for you, you can hear the the crew guy here making noise with these new ambient sounds. But L, I believe, is your latency to the server. So that would be like your ping. Obviously, my ping is 25 right now. I'm pretty sure L is latency. That goes up for me because everybody who runs races, hosted leagues, and stuff like that, they always set East Coast servers. Now that even though there's West Coast servers, seems like everybody's still running East Coast servers. So if you're a West Coast guy or you're far away from the server that your league owner or the iRacing has set, based on how many people are in the lobby, your ping is obviously going to go up, and it's probably going to affect your latency. Your Q is your quality. That affects this number here. If that number is spiking, it's got a little divider line here. Either way, when you can see this when you're driving, when cars start disappearing. If it's all the cars on track, it's your fault. If it's just one or two and you can see that, hey, these guys are blinking pretty bad, then it's their fault. But if it happens on everybody and everybody disappears and you're like, oh my God, where'd everybody go? Then it's your quality that's tanking and you're probably going to disconnect. The C is this CPU percentage? Percentage of available CPU. Yeah, so obviously, again, this is kind of at the same as the renderer. If you start to overload your CPU, you're gonna have to turn some things down. S is skew, which actually, does it say what skew even is? Oh, it's network stuff, kind of network latency. Okay. I don't really even notice that one ever change. It blinks a little bit green every once in a while. And then P is page fault. So you can see mine bouncing up to yellow every once in a while. That's because I'm recording, and I'm recording at pretty high settings. So a lot of my RAM and my resources on my computer are getting used by OBS. So I get a little bit of page fault issues when I'm streaming. It shows you here at the bottom page. Shows the rate of hard page faults, operating system operations that swap a 4K byte page of memory to and from the disk. So to and from your RAM, where the memory is not being utilized properly or to its full potential. iRacing just recently recommended to everybody switch to 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I've noticed a few friends of mine who still had 8 gig systems were having a lot of issues with page faults. So you can run 8 still, but it is a lot harder on dirt because we do have a lot more textures and things like that with dirt. So it's probably time to up your system to 16 gigs of RAM. As for the rest of it on this page, where was I? Yeah, there's nothing really else here. I mean, this is all preferential stuff. Show your driving controls, your radio info, black box, stuff like that. All stuff that you guys can just have on your screen if you want. That's just more black box stuff. Text chat, all that stuff doesn't really matter. That's not really system optimization. We're gonna go to graphics here, and like I said in the beginning, this isn't just gonna be optimizing your settings and stuff. This is gonna be stuff I kind of wish I knew when I first started, and things that settings I think can help you guys with even just your driving. So we talked about FOV. Now I'm running triples, and I said I'm running 3 1440p monitors, so that's why my resolution is 7680 by 1440. 2560 by 1440 is one standard 1440p monitor. You times that by 3, you get 7650. I up my UI zoom here so you guys could see on the video pretty good what I'm looking at here to 150%. I don't run it that high when I'm in a race and my own lobbies. So a lot of people will run VR and a single monitor. Say you're running your VR for dirt stuff, and then you want to go to a NASCAR race and you want to just leave your VR off. You could probably get a lot better graphics with just your single monitor. That's why I always suggest to people that they save multiple app and renderer files. So in the iRacing documents folder, we'll just go to it. You can see the app INI and the renderer DX11 INI. Whenever I am recording, I'm usually on a separate one that I have saved. So I have iRacing recording settings, iRacing pic settings where the graphics are turned up really, really high. I use that to paint and take pictures of my cars and stuff like that. and then iRacing triple monitor settings. You can see if I just click in here, it's just different copies of my app and renderer files that I can just highlight, copy, and paste into iRacing's folder, and it'll overwrite the one I have in there. And I have those set specifically for how I want them for each situation I'm doing. I used to have one that said iRacing VR settings because I used to have a VR, but I don't have that anymore, so I got rid of it. For triple monitors and things like that, you want multi-projection and SMP turned on. That is just going to help your graphics card and your computer as a whole render better on the 3 separate screens. It's going to save some resources for for the game. And for some reason, when where's it at? Yeah, this option without SMP check significantly decreases performance since the scene must be rendered 2 additional times for every frame on your separate screens. So this is just making it to where if you turn this off, it renders really weird, and I think the FOV kind of gets off. It makes it weird. So I mean, that's just standard across the board. Everybody's gonna tell you to turn that on. And then the SMP is the what is this one? It doesn't have to render the scenes separately, so it renders it all as one. And then it kind of if you notice that your FOV is stuck, like you got triple monitors set up, and you're like, well, I still want my FOV to go even higher. You know, if you're disregarding the FOV calculation stuff, and you're like, why won't it let me set it any higher than 140? If you have SMP checked based on your screen size and your viewing distance and the angles and stuff like that, if you have SMP checked, it will limit you to a certain number based on the way iRacing looks. Otherwise, it'll distort it really bad. Now, you can uncheck SMP and set the FOV as high as you want. If you'll notice that when you like if I typed in 270 and I didn't have the monitor width and things like that that could run that, it would automatically like drop it back down to the highest number it would allow it. Then I can uncheck SMP and run it at 270 if I really wanted to. But obviously the standard and the suggested method of that is run the correct FOV, leave SMP on to help your graphics and things like that. So now we've got the performance side of things. There is graphics card and CPU bound stuff in here. You know, cars, rendering the cars is very CPU intensive. Rendering all the details and the angles and triangles and all the geometry of the game and stuff like that is really dependent on kind of both. But you get a lot of your grandstands, your pit objects, things like that are really GPU intensive. So you notice with those bars, if the renderer bar is really high or the graphics bar is really high, this is where we get into fixing those things. So sky and clouds, you can leave that on low all the time. It actually doesn't really look any different now that they've updated that in the most recent big patch. You can run this at low, and it doesn't skip across the sky anymore, which it used to do, which was really distracting. And for cars, pit objects, event, grandstands, crowds, objects, particles, this is the stuff. This is how I like it. I've got a computer that can run it a little bit higher, but I just don't care to because I like to stream when I'm playing, so I don't want to drop frames while I'm streaming and playing. Again, this is something I could turn a lot of these up quite high, but I'd rather have a little loss of detail and keep my frames up, especially on dirt, because you don't want the corner to sneak up on you when the screen lags or something like that because your frames dropped really hard into the corner or something. So these are all really GPU things. As far as cars, you'll notice a lot of time people be like, my R bar on my iRacing is going like red when I'm on the grid, and then everything goes smoother. They added to where you can have max cars set to kind of whatever you want, but you can change the number that iRacing will draw to your computer. So I have mine set to 40, just because I do a few road stuff and NASCAR stuff every now and then. But the number on the left here is how many cars you'll be able to see, and then the number in parentheses is the number of in the mirror, right? Yeah, how many cars will draw in the mirrors and in other cameras? This bottom one is pit stalls. So you could draw 40 pit stalls, but if you only want to see 6 in the mirror, then you would, that's a number in parentheses. Dynamic LOD is actually really important. It's actually a really cool feature. I'm pretty glad it got added here pretty recently, a few months ago, I believe it was. But I have mine set to 123 and on world minus only and cars minus only. So if my frame rate was to drop, say I'm running a night race at Knoxville or something, and there's a lot of stuff going off, fireworks and whatever, and we're on the grid or whatever, and there's 23 cars in front of me, and all that plus what's going on around me, my computer's like, whoa, man, we can't handle that. The frames are going to start dropping. When the frames in the game get to 123, it'll start to lower the detail of the world, so the events and crowds and things like that going on, and the cars. You can change this to off, and your dynamic LOD won't matter at all. Like it'll never adjust your stuff. Or you can set it to plus and minus max or medium, minimum, whatever it might be. If you change it to plus minus max, it will, when there's plenty of resources available, it'll up your graphics to hit to stay above the number. And then when it gets down to that number, it'll start to drop it a little bit. So let's say you're all alone on the backstretch of Talladega or something where there's not much going on. There's no cars around you. And your computer's got a lot of resources that it's not having to render a bunch of stuff. It can up your graphics for you if you wanted, but when you come back around, let's say you're running through 3 and 4, the crowd starts popping up, you start to see more cars, you start to see pit row, there's cars in there, and you get dropped down to that number again, it'll drop your graphics for you, but it can drop them way, way too low, or, it can up them way too high, and then you get a lot of bouncing between frame rates, and I just don't like it. So I have it on minus only for that reason. That way, when it gets to 123, it'll start to lower things for me, and then it's right back up to where I need it to be. These sliders down here, when you run the iRacing graphics configurator, it'll set these to where their suggestion is based on the load of your RAM and your GPU. This bottom one is your RAM, how much max memory you want your iRacing to use of your RAM. I have 32 gigs of RAM, so I cranked it all the way up to 16. iRacing, I guess, doesn't use more than that. I guess it never will. I mean, this is never even over 4, I don't think, 4K. And then this is your GPU video RAM. So on all of your graphics cards, you should be able to probably just look it up on the computer. It'll say, you have like mine is a RTX 2080 Ti 11 gigabytes. That's 11 gigabytes of video RAM. A couple buddies of mine have like a RX 580 4 gigabytes. So this number, the 7,070 megabytes, is converted into gigabytes by just using the first number, basically. So I have this set at 7 gigabytes. I could up it to 8, because I think the max is like 8 something. I don't even want to move it right now and mess with it, because my card is 11 gigabytes of video RAM, but I just leave it at 7. It doesn't make a difference from going 7 to 8. iRacing never uses that much video RAM anyway, so I leave it at that. This Anisotropic Filtering and AA samples / mode, these are all like the, what do they call them? The edges, like the smoothness of the edges of the cars and where things round off and stuff. You'll notice if you turn this down, like cars and things where it's supposed to be round, like let's say the bars on here or the hood of the car, like it starts to get to like a point. If you lower these too much, these two will smooth out that stuff, and you can run it pretty low with it still looking pretty good. So if you're struggling a lot with GPU, your GPU is red or whatever, you could lower this quite a bit and it'll still look pretty decent until you get to none. But the lowest I'd go on the top one is probably 4x and then 2x. I would never turn them completely off. You could probably turn off a samples mode if it was really bad. Like you had a terrible computer, you could probably turn that off. But you probably always want to leave some filtering in there so the game doesn't look like you're playing on a PlayStation 1. Rendering dynamic track data and rendering dynamic tire data. This track data is for the dirt, I'm pretty sure. Rubber, marbles, and dust. Yeah, this allows you to see the rubber, marbles, and dust, and the slick lines really on when you're on dirt. So, I think a pop-up comes up when you try to load into dirt that says certain graphics are not enabled that need to be enabled to run dirt. So you're gonna want to run render dynamic track data for sure. Tire data is dirt, gravel, grass, and marbles. I honestly don't know. This might be the visual of the tires where the grass, you can see the grass on it. You can see the tire, like the wear and stuff with the gravel and the marbles and stuff from the dirt, or if you're on asphalt, like the marbles and stuff, the rubber that's been thrown up the track. I think. I have no idea, honestly, what the render dynamic tire data is. But if somebody knows, let me know, because I have no idea what that one really means. I know it says down here it enables or disables rendering that stuff, but I don't really know what that means. And then the biggest killer in iRacing, and truthfully, the shadows really aren't that great in iRacing anyway. So shadows are the biggest killer in iRacing. So you can preset all this stuff with high detail here, or where it says high detail and the drop down is on shader quality. You can go low and then it turns off a lot of stuff. Obviously you can't go to low if you want to run dirt. You can go to medium and run dirt, and then it'll automatically turn off stuff for you that is not available on medium quality. So I have mine set to high so I can keep my full res particles turned on, and then I can keep on both of these things. Now I can turn on shadow maps. If you want to run shadow maps on everything. Shadow maps, to me, I don't think it means what a lot of people think it means. I think if people think they turn that off, they're not going to see shadows. You can still see shadows with it off. The shadow mapping is, let's just read it. Shadow maps are a shadow method where shadows are rendered into textures that are then projected onto the scene. The setting allows you to specify which objects receive the projected shadow textures. Casting them on the cars doesn't affect FPS too much, while casting them on the terrain can be more costly. So I think it's just how it's rendered on top of like your car, or on top of the track, or on the wall and things like that. I don't notice a difference, honestly. Like it doesn't look that much better with it on, and it doesn't look that much better with it off. So I have mine set off, and I got a huge increase in FPS when I turned it off. Never ever run it on shadow maps on everything unless you're running a NASA computer, and never ever run it on track or on what's the one? Never run it on shadow maps on track. If you're not gonna run it on shadow maps, track, and cars, there's no reason to run it on just the track. So either off or tracks and cars. It even says, I think on the bottom there, casting them on the cars and track doesn't affect FPS too much, while casting them on the terrain can be more costly. So everything includes like all the surrounding area of the tracks and stuff. Maps on track and cars, and just track is just obviously those two things. But really, I think adding it to the cars might hurt by 1%, if that. So if you're going to run it on anything, it's tracks and cars or off. I like it off. As like I said, I just don't notice a difference. Night shadow maps is probably the biggest killer. This is especially true for VR. If you're struggling to get some FPS in VR, and it's really struggling to, even hold the minimum kind of drivable situation for yourself, which would probably be 60 in VR, night shadow maps have to be turned off. This eats away at FPS so much that it kind of just is one of those things that nobody should run, truthfully. And same thing with dynamic cube maps. If this accidentally got bumped up to like 1 or 2, turn it to 0. Fixed cube maps, turn all those to 0. This stuff is absolute killers when it comes to your computer, and you don't want that stuff on and on at all. This is the filter of the shadow from the lights on track. PCF4 filter is what I have mine set to. It's kind of like this anisotropic filtering. It adds a filter to the shadows to make them softer and not so jagged and sharp. Um, the lower you go or the higher number you put here, the better the shadows are going to look. Going to no filter is going to make them really, really PlayStation 1 jaggedy type shadows. And then this is the number of lights that can cast shadows. So what's a good situation here? So let's say there's like 3 lights up on the bulbs. It's not gonna put out like shadows all over the track from all 3 of those bulbs. It's just gonna take one of those lights and put the shadows from that one stationary pole, basically. I guess I don't really know how to read into that either. And when it's on your car and things like that, one of those lights is gonna be, as you're passing under it, it's gonna cast a shadow, and not all of it. So it uses a lot less resources from your computer. Lowering this, you can go down to 1, I think is the lowest. 8 is the highest. No, it's way higher than that. Is it just unlimited? All right, so it goes really high. But I think the default is 3 or 2. But I have it set on 1, like I said, because I just don't care to see shadows. I'm more interested in frame rate. Your steering wheel, you can have this set to show the driver arms, which is showing the arms and the wheel, actually. I don't know why it doesn't say arm/wheel. You can have it showing just the steering wheel where you can't see the arms, I think. I'm pretty sure. And then you can hide the steering wheel where you won't see the arms or the steering wheel. So like if you're in an F1 car and you're turning, you won't see the wheel turning on your screen. If you have it set to show steering wheel, you'll see the wheel turning like while you're looking at your car, but you won't see the arms controlling it. And then if you have this on, you'll see the arms and the wheel moving and things like that. I have mine hide steering wheel because, like I said, I run mostly dirt stuff. I don't even see my wheel. And when I do go get in the car, if I'm messing around running like a F3 race or one of those road cars or GT3 cars or something like that, I just don't like the arms and stuff, the way it like gets in the way sometimes of the looking out the window and stuff like that. So I hide that, and I can still see the wheel. It just doesn't move when I'm actually moving mine in the car, which is kind of weird and a little odd to get used to at first, but it's pretty cool once you get used to it, because you can, it's like you controlling the car. It's not like some virtual person's arms and steering wheel turning the car, which I don't know. That's just me. 2-pass trees is another one of those things that should never be turned on. Always off. Who cares what the trees look like on the outside of the track? And 2-pass trees uses a ton of CPU to render in better looking trees, which you don't need. Cockpit mirrors I don't run because I hardly do oval and road stuff. Same thing with higher detail in mirrors. Headlights, low detail. Headlights on track and mirrors turned off. These 1, 2, 3, 4. These are pretty big hitters for FPS also, and rendering issues when it comes to night races and road and oval and things like that. If you have a ton of mirrors turned on in your car, you're going to get a pretty big FPS hit. If you've turned a lot of this stuff down and you're following this stuff in the middle that I talked about, you're like, God, I still can't hold steady frames, and you have some of this checked over here. You might be running too many mirrors. You might be you don't really need higher detail in those mirrors. I mean, you have a virtual mirror. You don't need too much more than that. And the detail on the headlights with low, when I've run night races like on road stuff, it still looks decent. Like it's like the clouds kind of. It still looks fine. Heat haze, Fxaa is actually a separate anti-aliasing effect, which is different than this. I think you can turn this off and go to Fxaa. This is like if your computer's like really, really old, I think. To be honest, I can't even remember. I feel like I've read about this before. But again, it's not not useful at all. Just leaves stuff like that off. Sharpening is actually pretty decent for VR purposes. I like the sharpening on mine, obviously, because I wear glasses and I don't see that well. So with things that, while things, it does make it a little unrealistic because it's almost too sharp. So if you got pretty good eyesight, you probably don't want sharpening on. This just makes like the lines like really, really dark, and everything is really, really sharp on the edges of things. Parallax is the new thing that they added. I have no idea what that means. I think it's another like light shadowy thing. All this stuff is really cool for pictures and things like that. What you want on, you might want some heat haze in the background. You might want some HDR if you got HDR monitors, parallax turned on, all that. That might be really cool for your pictures, but it's just not beneficial for your racing at all. And then you could turn this on if your computer's struggling again with a lot of cars in front of you. If your rendering is struggling, you can turn on this video memory swap high res cars. I think how many cars is it? The 3 closest cars to you, so to the camera, whether you're viewing a replay or you're viewing it in on track, those cars are going to have really high detail. Now the other cars, which might not be much farther ahead, are going to look like PlayStation 1 cars. Do with that as you may, but it does make the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th farthest cars from you look pretty ugly. That's why I leave mine off. But if your computer is really struggling, you're gonna have to turn it off. You could also turn off the 2048 by 2048 car textures. This again is just another one of those things that makes the paints look a lot better. So the paints and the small lines and things like that are a lot more crisp. It says it uses a higher resolution for textures for paint jobs if possible. So if you don't have enough RAM and your video RAM, which we talked about on these sliders down here, this could be something, again, you could turn off and it would help your computer. If you're new to iRacing, you're just trying to use this on your like home desktop that has like a really old graphics card in it. One of these things you might have to turn off. And then hide card numbers is custom paints with custom numbers so you can see them. Obviously with Dirt Oval, these are popular. This is my custom number 21. If I turn that off, where'd I go? I can see people, or if I turn it off, I wouldn't be able to see people's custom numbers. iRacing would stamp a number on there for it. So if they have Trading Paints Pro, they can have a sim stamped paint and a custom number paint. So if they have their custom number paint in both those slots, it stamps it on top and makes it look really weird. Personal preference here, obviously. I mean, if you're running road course races and things like that where car numbers don't really matter, you don't need this on at all. If you're running like NASCAR stuff though, and somebody's like running a custom paint number with, like a Dale Juniors 3 or Dale Juniors 3, Dale Seniors 3, Dale Juniors 8, or anybody in any number out there, if they're the number 12 car in the server and you don't have this on, it's going to stamp a number 12 on top of that, and it just makes it look kind of weird. But a lot of people don't like this checked because they want to be able to say like, hey, F you 12 for wrecking me. And if they have it checked, it looks like the 8, and then they yell at the 8, and the 8 car in the server's like, whoa, what did I do? And he's like, you wrecked me. He's like, dude, I'm not even near you. And the other guy is just laughing because he's actually the 12, but his car says the 8. So those are pretty funny. I've actually been in some of those conversations with people on like big Daytona races and stuff like that, which were really, really funny. And then replay settings are, again, outside of the car watching, broadcast mode, basically. And you would need to set those based on, however you need them to not lag while you're watching the replay and stuff. So kind of skip through that. Sounds are based on what you have. I mean, if you're running a headset and it's got, 7.1 Dolby digital surround stuff, you can check surround. You can rotate the sound with your VR headset movement. As you turn your head and stuff, the sounds like get louder and move. Like, I don't really know how to even explain it. And then all your sound levels that you can custom adjust. Spotter, different voice packs. Not really stuff you need. I need to talk about anyway. Already at 35 minutes here. Let me go on to controls. No, we don't need to talk about controls. That's all stuff you can set for yourself. Back here to driver's view. I wanted to talk about this and get in the car and show you. Driver height's pretty cool. You can adjust this stuff. I think I'm going to make a separate video for this because this is something that a lot of people get confused on with FOV and seat placement in the car. So I think I'm going to do that, actually. That seems like a better idea. This is already 35 minutes long, and I don't want to lose you guys and talk about something important here that's, you know, pretty important to talk about. So other than that, I think that's it for this one, honestly. I know this stuff. I promise I do. You guys can trust me. If you need help, you can send me messages, leave comments, things like that. I've team viewer taken over plenty of teammates' computers. It seems like a weekly basis to fix this stuff. And so I'm pretty well versed in all this stuff. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one. I'll probably just record right away after that. I might not even leave the server. I'll record right after this and put the new video. Just make a new video. It'll hopefully be a lot shorter. So I don't want to go over a 40-minute video here for you guys because that video will require a little bit of driving. So we'll go do that here in a minute. As for this video, again, as always, appreciate you guys watching. You can find my live streams on Twitch. We're 1 week away from locking up a pro license for World of Outlaws sprint car stuff, so we'll be running some pro races here pretty soon on there, which is going to be pretty interesting. So we'll see how that goes. Twitch.tv/shapes, SHAEPZ, right there on the car. And again, thank you guys for watching. There's still subscribers coming in, even though I've been lacking on uploading, so appreciate that too, guys. So I'll be right back. The next video will be in the car talking about driver height and seat placement and things like that. So we'll jump into that here in a minute. But thank you guys.